Okay. Hello, everyone. This is our monthly ABFER and the Tsinghua PBS PSF talk on capital markets and beyond. Today we are very happy to have a bankruptcy charter paper and a connection to the bond. The title is "The Value of a Bankruptcy Enforcement in Financial Distress." The paper is written by Li Bo, Li Mai, and Li Songnan, and finally Laura Liu. Li Bo will present. Li Bo is recently moved from Tsinghua PBCSF to Beida Guanghua. And our discussant originally set is a Jiang Wei from Emory University. Unfortunately, this morning, I'm now at the California, the morning of the California, which means the midnight of Beijing. She had some family issues, so she could not be present with our webinar. However, she already prepared very thoughtful PowerPoint slides. So she sent it to me, and I will basically serve both as a host as well as a discussant. Obviously, I will add on a little bit my own comments with it. So all the whatever so we were preparing, we will proceed as everything is normal. Just will miss Jiang Wei, and obviously Li Bo should reach out to Jiang Wei later. Without further ado, let's have Li Bo to present this paper.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present our work. So at ABFER always, so we're really thankful to Bernie and Xiaolei, and right now we have two discussants. So we really appreciate both Zhigu and Wei Jiang's comments work. So this is a joint collaboration with my colleague at Guanghua, Mai Li, and our PhD graduate Songnan at UIBE, and Laura. So essentially, so this paper, we touch a very fundamental topic on legal institutions. So it's well documented in the literature from La Porta. So it can significantly impact the financial market and allocation of resources. Keeping this in mind, so different countries, they try to introduce laws, try to protect creditors in various countries over the past decades or so. Now, however, there are still different frictions with the judicial enforcement. For example, so there could be congested courts, there could be lack of specialization, meaning judges, they don't have the right expertise. And this will lead to high bankruptcy costs. So it's very cumbersome for a firm to go bankrupt. And then more specifically in China, so there is kind of lack of judicial independence, and then integrate in the format of government interference in court, which we'll touch more in detail. So this also has been documented in the literature on the judicial independence in China. Now, all these points towards the efficient court enforcement is very important, so such that it will affect the debt recovery in distress. Especially it has broader implications for both domestic creditor as well as foreign creditor issues in these days. Now, first, I'm going to show you several stylized facts related to China. So our work was very much motivated by Zhigu and Amstein, so their work. So especially on the Chinese debt market has experienced boom and bust in past 2 decades. So in the figure below, I show the amount of bond default and number of bond default has been increasing since 2014. I think most of the audience are aware of this. Now, given this surge in bankruptcies, in defaults, now the next question is whether can the firm go bankrupt? Now, surprisingly, this is not that easy in China. So there could be different sources of frictions or barriers into bankruptcy. For example, in China, there's an ultra low bankruptcy rate. So meaning like only one fifth of those in the US. And also both government, banks, and firms, they have limit incentive to go bankrupt. So they try to avoid a step aside from bankruptcies. And then so many of these firms declare insolvency without reaching the court. And also, so this will lead to hiding of major risk in the financial system, right? So as also documented in the literature on the Japanese banking crisis and etc. So the consequence on the real economy can be even more, especially it can stifle the productivity, leave those zombie firms alive, and then this can lead to prolonged economic stagnation. So therefore, all these points, so it go beyond default, and especially the question, how should we resolve the default and bankruptcies. So especially in China, the surge in that default reached 130 billion US dollars. So especially today is calling for bankruptcy resolutions and try to improve the court enforcement. And then our next point on the starlight fact is, how about judicial enforcement in China? So if we think about it, it's less efficient. So is there any kind of how relative comparing to the US, right? How inefficient are these systems? So I plot these across different jurisdictions on its recovery from the bankruptcy resolutions allocated to the unsecured creditors across different prefecture cities. Now the recovery, so there's a lot of variation, heterogeneity across different jurisdictions. In terms of the recovery rate is for the top quartile is 22.2%. For the bottom, so you get 0. And so if we benchmark to the US, so it's roughly 30%, the median for senior unsecured creditors. So that means even for top one, so it is less efficient than the US counterpart. So now with this question in mind, so we try to touch a fundamental question. So we try to, I think over the years, we try to learn about the bankruptcy resolution in China. So from 2007, so we introduced a new enterprise bankruptcy law. So this covers, so in the past, bankruptcy only covers state-owned companies. So with this law change, it covers more on the private firms. It tried to strengthen credit rights after China's accession to the WTO. And they also introduced reorganization similar to the US. But still, so when we first, previous paper, when we try to rerun regression, there isn't much effect. Or, there is a limited number of bankruptcy cases still. So therefore, we're very puzzled, and we talk a lot to these practitioners, the judges and the lawyers. So the message we get is there is still a weak court enforcement, especially under the political interference. Now, what we also, over the years, we learned a lot from these judges. So there is a kind of specialist court introduced across different jurisdictions with the goal of improving efficiency in the bankruptcy resolution.
May I interrupt you for just clarification, very simple clarification? What is the consequence of default and bankruptcy in the case of China? I'm not familiar with this. Please help.
The consequence. So
individually. Yeah.
Individually. So
right, for the CEOs and so on.
Individual right to the corporate, right?
Individual and also the corporate. Just very briefly,
so
because
right
I'm ignorant in this.
Yes. So right now in my paper, thank you for your question. So in this paper, we touch more on corporate bankruptcies. So we believe this is important. But another, so as Bernie also raised, so about personal bankruptcies. So in China, it's still even left behind. So meaning we don't actually have a personal bankruptcy law yet. So, but also from the Congress. So when I talk to these practitioners, they have been very, there is improvement, but in terms of passage of law, to implement is still a question, personal debt, moral hazard, etc. It's still in progress, but there is it has been implemented in certain courts, such as in Shenzhen. So they are trying to deal with personal bankruptcies per se. So I think in our future work, we may also touch on personal bankruptcy.
I think Bernie is basically just asking you, let's say, firm, because you are looking at firm. Let's just tell us that what does it mean by firm bankruptcy? What will happen?
So what will happen is they have to file for the bankruptcy. So there are barriers in whether the court will accept your case. So these are different frictions going on. So, and then also these firms, different than in the US, they don't have much assets left. So automatically, most of these will declare insolvency per se. So a significant number of firms, they don't have a chance even to go through the court proceed to declare bankruptcy. So this is very different than from other countries. If I did answer your question.
Maybe I will seek information out later.
Okay, I'm going to provide also the procedure-wise what's going on the procedure. Yeah, I think that will answer your point in more detail. Exactly. So so there's the introduction of the specialty court, try to improve the efficiency in the resolutions. So what they're trying to do is expertise. So if they graduate from the law school or finance background, because bankruptcy is very complex. You need to know about how to reorganize a firm, how to introduce investors, and etc. So we're in civil court in China, so the judges, they are mainly the civil servant. They don't have the right expertise. Now, what we learned is from 2007 until 2020, so specialized tribunal, it was introduced in different jurisdictions, so 97 of these. And then later on, from 2019, so there's what we call the new specialized court. So in my talk, both of these are referred to as bankruptcy court or specialized court. Okay. Now in this paper, we try to touch a very simple question. How does bankruptcy enforcement in China affect the credit market? So in our empirical setting, we are going to explore the staged introduction of the special court relative to civil court. So these bankruptcy court, they are going to hire better trained judges who subject to less polarized political influence, as documented in my previous paper. So, and also in particular, we want to look at how does insecure the credit bondholder. So how do they price these securities in response to the expected value of the claims in bankruptcy state. So now this is very important rather than the bankruptcy law per se. Especially we want to explore the one institution detail, which is you have to file in your local court for bankruptcy, which is predetermined. And this is affect how much you can get so from this bankruptcy court. So, and in China, so there is no foreign shopping, different than in the US. You can choose which court to file for bankruptcy. So we are going to utilize these institutional details, which I'm also going to talk more in detail. And furthermore, so we focus on the role of the bankruptcy enforcement, especially on credit recovery from this resolution plan. We are going to dig into this detailed bankruptcy filings. Okay, here are our main findings. So we show that special court leads to reductions in the bond spread. So by how much? 18 basis points. This is 7.6% of this average trading spread. And also we show that a 10% increase in bankruptcy enforcement decreased bond spread by 33 basis points. And then so in terms of magnitude, the court enforcement is very important. That explains 47% of this bond spread. So using the variation at city level. And then furthermore, so in our paper, we try to document the mechanism because we believe it's very important for us to understand about court enforcement. So we show that this special court leads to improvement in the bankruptcy efficiency, which means the law firms are going to be reorganized instead of being liquidated. So they are going to spend less time in bankruptcy. And also this leads to increase in debt recovery by how much? By 11%. And furthermore, we try to, in China, we try to document whether this leads to reduction in political interference. We show yes, by using the politically connected trustees from these court filings. We show there's reduction of this government interference during bankruptcy because in the past, so government always want to appoint political trustees, try to oversee this bankruptcy resolution process. And furthermore, we show this mostly affect the loss given default. And there's a limited impact on the default probabilities. And furthermore, we also look at this heterogeneity impact on who benefits from the bankruptcy court. We show that these lower rated issuers, so they're going to benefit more, especially in China, POEs. So they have a high default risk, so they are more likely going to benefit if they enter financial distress. And furthermore, given in China, there is surge in local government debt. So the reduction in bond spread is more pronounced in cities with high government debt. And even so for the cities, if they experience local SOE default. And furthermore, we are going to use one of the major default Yongmei events. So that caused market panic on the SOE default. So we are going to show that after this event, the effect is more pronounced. And furthermore, we are going to look some real impact on how does court introduction and the enforcement affect the debt capacity of this firm. This will increase their debt capacity by 4.6%, and this will lead to increase in investment by 14 points for a 10% increase in recovery. So that's basically about our main findings. And so due to time limitation, I will be brief on these related literature, especially I think many of you in the audience work on the Chinese bond market. So in our paper, we try to look at the resolution outcomes of these bond defaulters. So how should we resolve this default, right? So we look at in-court bankruptcy resolutions. And then furthermore, we also zoom in the variation in court enforcement, different than, for example, country as a whole. So probably this allows us to zoom in, especially the variation at the local level. How does this kind of explain the variation in bond spread? Now, in terms of data, so first we need to have the timing on the introduction of this special court. So we have been extremely thankful to these Supreme Court judges, and the Ministry of Justice. So they help us to pin down the timing of this kind of introduction of this court, especially at local level, whether it is in operation. And second piece of data is on the case level data. So we hand collected these bankruptcy filings from National Corporate Bankruptcy Platform from 2012 to 2021. So we collect the information on this bankruptcy firm, meaning that name of this firm, location, sector, their size, the owner information. So bankruptcy filing. So we also look at their dates from acceptance to completion. So very important. So the type of case, whether it's liquidation or reorganization. And then the judges handling this case. So it allows us to look at the judge expertise. And then in order to look at the political connection, we also try to construct a measure on bankruptcy trustees because they are going to play a major role in the resolution process. And then, so we are going to use mostly these reorganization, liquidation outcomes, duration, recoveries. We are going to calculate from each of these bankruptcy filings as well as government interference. And then we are going to match these case level data to construct the court enforcement. And then that next piece of data is on the bond level data from when. I think this is very standard, so very familiar from all you. Now let me show you one of these. How does bankruptcy filing look like in China? So this is one of the case from the Nanjing Intermediate Court. It shows this company, so it's going bankrupt. So it shows the resolution plan. And on the right panel, it shows how much are you going to get paid. So especially for the unsecured creditors, 3.64%. So it shows how much the assets being distributed across different claimants. Okay, in terms of specification, so our special court equal to 1 after introduction at each city. And then so we are going to look at the for each of the bond by each issuer, and if they are located in city C and each quarter in province in as sector. And then so especially we are going to include variations of these controls at city level, so at firm level, so their characteristics at bond level. And then also, so we are going to control the time variation of the issuer's ownership across time and the bond characteristics over time. So very granular, high-dimensional fixed effect. So now the first question is, does the local characteristic predict the court introduction? We show not really. So especially if we look at the number the percentage of the zombie firm, they do not necessarily predict the court introduction. The number of default not really predict the court introduction. The number of bankruptcy cases, business environment. So therefore, so this shows that these local characteristics do not necessarily predict the time of introduction. And then so this is our baseline result. So we show that after the introduction of this court, this leads to a reduction of bond spread by 18 basis points, so which is 7.6% reduction. So we use different controls in different specifications from city level control, firm level control, as well as bond characteristics, and well as different kind of high-dimensional fixed effect. So all these magnitudes are very similar across different specifications. So we also plot whether there's kind of no pre-trend prior to the court introduction. So all effect mainly kick in. 4 quarters after, and even pronounced 8 quarters after. So there's a lesser pre-trend. And also our result is robust to alternative methods from the recent literature. And
by the way, what's the why? I'm sorry. You presented too fast. Well, let's slow down.
Okay.
What's why?
So we construct the bond spread over the benchmark rate.
Oh, spread. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you, Zhibo.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I thought this very standard from the our audience. So yeah.
Well, you could add a lot of why there. Just
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, in terms of identification, so we try to explore the timing of the introduction in the special court, as well as the differences in the court, difference in jurisdictions where the courts are dealing with this bankruptcy case. Now, there's a specific feature in the Chinese judicial system where, in terms of the whole court, which court deals with which bankruptcy case. So actually, it's predetermined, and according to Article 3 of the Enterprise Bankruptcy Law, it states that bankruptcy cases shall be under the jurisdiction of the people court where the debtor is domiciled. So this is a very important feature. So different than in the US where you can go for shopping, it is only under your jurisdiction. So we are going to explore this feature. So by using the neighboring county regression, so we try to establish causality by comparing the bond spread between the counties that are adjacent to each other, but belonging to jurisdictions that are distinct in the court enforcement. So by comparing from the special court versus civil court. So because they're very distant from each other, right? So any difference between bond spread between these counties on either side of the border, it can be only attributed to the effect of special court. So how granular are we going to look at? So probably in the neighboring counties, cities, as well as we also show results. So if they are within the distance of 10 kilometers or within 1 hour of driving distance. So let me show you one graph. So what we mean by neighboring jurisdiction. So here I show Ma'anshan and Nanjing. So they are adjacent to each other. And then we are going to, on the left panel, we are going to run regression on the neighboring cities. So, and on the right panel, we're going to run regression on the neighboring counties. So that means they are very close to each other. And then, so this kind of connecting line, it also shows that which court handles which case locally. As you can see, it's much localized. So only your local court can handle the your bankruptcy case of this firm located in your jurisdiction. Okay, by using these institutional details,
come back.
Okay.
Just so here, just explain to us that the green one, you're comparing green one versus the red one, is that right?
We're comparing the red one. The blue one versus the green blue one versus the red one. So these neighboring cities.
So which two cities? Let's say just point out the two points that are saying the one is treated, the one is not treated.
One is Ma'anshan, one is Nanjing.
Okay.
Nanjing, has the as I showed, court with specialized tribunal. So the green dot. Yeah,
but not every firm in there could be dealt with by the green points. Is that correct? If I understand your dots correctly.
You're right.
Like the lines, you're saying that the lines saying that it's belong to the red one.
Mm-hmm. So basically we're comparing Nanjing City versus Ma'anshan City, which one, the Nanjing has a special court, Ma'anshan doesn't have.
But right? Is that true that in Nanjing City, every firm inside the Nanjing City can all go to the green dots?
Very good question. Not really. So as shown in my previous paper, only 50. So we look at this question very carefully. Only 50% of these cases will go to this bankruptcy court. So not every. So it will be distributed between the special court versus civil court, still within Nanjing. Yeah.
Still within Nanjing. And here you actually told us the particular small dots that are connected to the green one. So those are the ones that if they bankrupted, they could go to the special court. Is that correct?
Yes. We're connecting each firm to its court where they file for bankruptcy. Yeah.
So then why don't you just so what's the identification then? You're comparing the red dots versus the green dots inside the Nanjing, or What's that identification in
Okay,
this
so
space?
identification, we compare this Nanjing versus and Ma'anshan city, not within.
Not within. So you're saying that you're actually
yeah.
pulling all the firms that are in Nanjing, but some of them is not really the best. It's called like it's a propensity to treat kind of thing. It's not really treated.
Let me put it this. Sorry. So we are comparing the court introduction in different cities between Nanjing and Ma'anshan, and also within the city. So there could be a civil court, bankruptcy court. So they could both handling bankruptcy case. So we can compare. So whether if you are treated in the special court or civil court. So how?
Yeah, but you are not interested in that. You're interested in the average effect of the. It's not the average treatment effect even, because you know that some of them it's actually not treated.
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
Thank you for the
may I add
clarification.
something to this?
Yeah.
So for these exercises, basically we are comparing. Actually this bond issue hasn't go default or gone bankrupt. So basically we don't know eventually like if they go bankrupt, which court they'll be end up with. So for these exercises, we are comparing all the black dot in Nanjing versus Ma'anshan. But the reasons why we connect them to the court is that we want to restrict the sample to the regions within 10 kilometers.
Oh.
So for the next exercises.
Okay. Anyway, I think this is very important.
But the treatment effect, but the treatment effect is within prefecture cities. So even in all the Nanjing, all the firms within Nanjing cities, they can choose actually, as Li Bo says, in the specialized court versus civil court, they can have a right to do this within prefecture city.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's clarified a lot. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for your question.
Yeah. So I skipped one. Yeah, so this is what we run regression with neighboring jurisdictions. So with neighboring cities versus neighboring counties, the results are pretty much similar, even in terms of magnitude. So it validates our baseline results. So such as even when focusing on the neighboring jurisdictions, indeed it is driven by the special court rather than other local different characteristics. And then, so let's take one step back to look at the theoretical motivation, especially this classical work tells us that, so how can we, especially on the contribution of the recovery rate on the bond spread. So now in our next findings, so we are going to explore whether increases in that recovery rate can reduce bond spread, and whether the effect of that recovery on bond spread is stronger when the default probability is higher. And then, so let me show you. So probably Bernie asked this question on the bankruptcy resolution process. So when the bond, this is a Dongbei, a special steel, also the case from the Zhiguo, where the bond default on 2016, and then the court will decide whether to accept your case or not. So in this case, they are going to appoint these trustees, whether they are politically connected or not, in October 2016. And then, so we call this from 2016 October until August 2017, so which is confirmation of the resolution plan. So this is the duration of this bankruptcy resolution. So at the end, we are going to see the resolution plan. From the resolution plan, how much does each of these creditors will get. So in this case, we are going to get 22% in terms of recovery rate. So for each of the bond issue, if they defaulted, we are going to collect this information. We are going to construct liquidations versus reorganizations, duration from the case acceptance to case confirmation, and we calculate recovery based on Ivashina, their GFE paper. So based on reorganizations, how should we estimate the market value of this asset repaid to the unsecured creditors, or the value of this total unsecured debt, and also in liquidations, which is estimated still proceeds over the value of this total unsecured creditor debt at these filings.
How do you do this? I'm very interested. I don't know this paper, but in what way that you are estimating it?
So we're estimating.
Let's say you get a portion of the company.
Yep.
How do you do it? Explain.
So from this bankruptcy resolution plan, so we are going to read out. So for example, how in both reorganization and liquidation. How, especially we are interested in how does bondholder they are able to get from this.
Yes, and I'm interested in knowing how do you get the estimation of how much they get. If there's some number attached to it in the legal document, that's easy, but sometimes it's not. How do you do it?
This is just from this legal document. So actually what we show here is we read from this legal document.
But in what way you are using Ivashina paper?
So
if it's just purely coming from the document, then you don't need to use Ivashina paper.
Because Ivashina, they also read from this court filing document, which is similar from our approach. So their paper is on bankruptcy. They also reading these bankruptcy filings about 300 of this firm in reorganization or liquidation. They read out these unsecured credit, how much they're able to get. So very similar to our approach because we are also looking at bankruptcy filings in that regard. Yeah.
So I think there are several cases that I need to explain. For example, if the debt holder. So first we find the most pertinent class to the bondholder. For example, in this case, it would be the bondholder and non-financial creditors. And then we read how they will get repaid. Sometimes they will get repaid by a one-time cash payment. So basically, we just use the amount of cash you get divided by the total amount of the unsecured debt.
Yeah, that's clear.
There'll be some there'll be some cases that are more complicated. For example, they will not only be paid by cash, but also be paid by the bond or equity. So we get the market value. And sometimes we need to also use some discount because they are not get one-time payment. They'll get several payments across time. So we discount by all the cash payments using the latest year to maturity that we can get from the bond, from this corporate bond to discount. Yeah, that would be several cases that need my explanation for this calculations.
Yeah, can I ask one more question on this?
Sure. Yeah.
So this is the number on paper, on legal document, or I think to what extent those numbers will be delivered,
enforced.
Yeah.
Because
that's the question.
So actually, let me. So actually, probably at the end. So that's a very good question. Probably they may not get as much like 22%. At the end, it could be lower even than this number. So because that, it could be so lower. So this is from resolution plan. How much you should get. So in practice, so the value is lower than, for example, 22% received.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just another clarification. This one is for those with the special with the court, right? With the specialty court, right?
Yeah.
And what about those without? Do you have anything?
Yes, we also collect these. So for both the special court and civil court, we are going to read out these bankruptcy filings. We compare so special court, civil court. So so how their resolution.
My question is, are you going to show another slide about them?
Yes. So I'm going to just show the results.
So
if we're comparing, so right here. So well, if we compare special court versus civil court, how does this resolution outcome differ? Is this your question, Bernie?
Yeah. Go on,
okay,
go on, please.
So we show that bankruptcy court leads to overall efficiency in bankruptcy resolution. How? So this leads to reduction in the probability of liquidation. So we know this will lead to lesser value in terms of recovery. So from the existing literature, given in China, most of these cases are going to enter liquidation in the past. And then so this will reduce the duration in bankruptcy process. By how much? By over 500 days in bankruptcy. This is a lot relative to the existing literature. And also this increase also leads to increase in debt recovery from what we show you. So from the bankruptcy filing. So if we compare the bankruptcy court versus civil court proceed, we are going to observe the changes in bankruptcy outcomes. How much do they improve the efficiency gains? And also we calculate from these, we try to look at the government interference in the court, because in the past, the government always want to step in to intervene in the bankruptcy process. We show that after introduction of this court, because these judges are very much professional, so this will lead to reduction in the government interference by 44%. So if we use a political connected trustee by reading out this, conducting contextual analysis by mapping, so who is a trustee and their political affiliation. So overall, what we show that, so there's this increase in debt recovery is sizable. So so increase by 11%. So if we go from the median, so of the 7%, so it reduces the 3-year bond spread by about 30 basis points. So this is what we show on the mechanism, especially on bankruptcy resolution outcomes. And I think I'm running out of time. So furthermore, we
okay. It's okay.
Thank you so much. So we look at sensitivity of these bond spreads to the court enforcement. So meaning, how does bond investor, do they value the local court enforcement? This is a very important question. And then also, in order to answer this question, we construct the court enforcement, so at a local level. So based on the recovery rate of this defaulted bond. So, and we show that a 10% increase in court enforcement reduced the bond spread by 33 basis points from column 1 on column 2, which is continuous measure. And in column 3 and column 4, so we showed for different groups. So for the high enforcement group, so over exceeding 3%, so that will decrease bond spread even further by an additional 134 basis points. So that means indeed, so this result indicate the court enforcement matters and goes in beyond the introduction of the special court. So actually, how do you resolve this distress form? So how much can creditor recover in distress matters. And then so we also construct, so these how much can the court enforcement explain the pricing of the bond spread. So we estimate at city level. So the court enforcement can explain about 40% of this variation in bond spread. So that's sizable. And so furthermore, so I will be very brief.
But once again, so that's enforcement measurement. This measurement is really based on numbers from those documents, right?
Yeah.
Instead of what Zhibo said, enforced recovery rate.
Yeah.
Final enforcement.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just how much the court said, how much you can get. In the final enforcement, indeed, we would like to know the number, but in China, even for the so the resolutions plan, so that's what we can get. But we hope in the future to get more precise measures on the actual enforcement from the court. So probably we may see even a lot more variations, and then so we can measure the actual so why do we use this kind of resolution plan? Because at least it captures the court resolution, the capacity, the efficiency in terms of allocating resources. So for the actual enforcement, so it can be affected. So by, for example, how can they sell these assets, market condition, etc. So there could be other caveats, but yeah. So in the future, if we have better method, that would be great. So these are slightly different. So now we also explore the different heterogeneities of who benefits from this bankruptcy court, especially issuer with high financial risk. For private-owned firms, if they have high bankruptcy costs, for cities with high government debt, and if they experience the SOE default, and then on real impact upon issuers. So I'm going to show you, so given the audience probably are more interested in the POE versus SOEs, we show that it is POEs, they are going to benefit more. Why they are going to have a higher probability of default. So as shown in the bottom panel, so especially this help this creditor recovery in distress. This the reduction in bond spread. And then furthermore, we also show especially given the surge in local government debt. So we show that it's especially the effect is even more pronounced for in local cities with high government debt from panel 1, and then also in panel 3. So column 3 show that if a local jurisdiction, local city, if they experience SOE default, so the court enforcement matters. So this will reduce the bond spread to a greater extent. And furthermore, we are going to use event by Yongmei, so which is SOE default from Henan province. This triggered market panics about SOE default in the future. So we show that the effect is more pronounced after Yongmei's default. So that means so for the creditors, how much the court can enforce and recover, this have implications on the pricing. And then finally, we're going to look at some real impact, especially we look at how does this court enforcement and creditor recovery can affect the firm investment decisions. We show there on asset debt, so this will lead to increase in the especially firm debt capacity. So this is aligned with other work of my co-authors. from Brazil and other countries. So this will, furthermore, this will lead to longer bond maturity and a stronger court enforcement. And also this will lead to a more significant effect for the bond relative to the bank. Why? Because the bank loan, they are more secured creditors. So they are going to always, anyway, they are going to recover more. But for the bondholders, they are going to benefit more from this court enforcement. And also we show that this leads translated into increases in the investment. It has implications on the allocation of resources and firm investment decisions. Otherwise, so if they enter distress, they are going to cut down investment in the short run. And then we also plot these dynamics about firm outcomes before and after the court introduction. So it's only kicking in after the introduction of this court. And then we also conduct a bunch of robustness tests using different outcome variables. So looking at different estimation methods. And if we look at the first completion of case, so that indeed shows the role of court enforcement and other kind of robustness. So all our results previews. And then so let me to wrap up. So we believe, so bankruptcy institutions is very important. Both during long time and especially in the financial distress. So in China, so it's characterized by different type of frictions associated with big court enforcement. And then so what is the main takeaways from this paper? So indeed, we show special court, they can enhance credit protection by expediting the bankruptcy process. And then also we shed light on the variation in court enforcement matters on the bond pricing. So on policy implication, we believe court enforcement is a precondition for firm to benefit, especially in the near future, given the increases in the debt defaults. And furthermore, so our research on bankruptcy has getting more attention over the years. So we're also very thankful to the judges. We learned a lot from them. And then so I think it's we learn about especially different institutional details and how the bankruptcy resolution process has been changing over these years, given the rise in the number of bond default and financial distress. And furthermore, so it also gradual effect. So how does the World Bank thinking if they consider the doing business score? So recently they added a special court into their doing business score. So we believe these are all the small steps for us to better understand about judicial enforcement, even though we have different type of frictions and still a lot of work to clear up this bond default in the near future. So we also would like to talk our who are interested in bankruptcy and distress in China. Thank you so much.
All right, great. So I will pretend I'm Jiang. Let me share the screen. Okay, so this is prepared by Jiang. I did a little bit of touch just to make it a little bit richer. Okay, this is a very polished paper. Will be 11th public presentation. I don't know how did she calculate it, or she reach out to you guys, and she will be the 5th discussant. I didn't know how she reached this number. So anything that came to her mind, reading the front end was discussed in the paper. Results are believable. Hard to imagine that efficient courts or better enforcement of rules could lead to a worse outcome. Let me add a little bit of the caveats. I kind of disagree, or in some sense, I would give credit for the authors, because in China there are many things that the government would like to do, and often the time it's just do some things as in a way it's just on the surface, right? We have many market that actually doesn't mean too much. So if you have some institutional change that actually you could establish saying that this is very useful, that itself is a result. In United States or some other countries, maybe that's not surprising, but I do think that in China that it's very useful to show that it works. Okay, the closest paper is Ponticelli and Alancar, who showed that bankruptcy process refinement in Brazil lead to increased investment and a higher proportion of long-term debt. So those are the basic ideas. Okay. Now, I read through the Jiang Wei's point. It's basically that there's I agree with her. Three of them, and I agree with everything. It's just that some of them I don't think that's very important, but some of them are extremely important. So I will emphasize that. So this is what the Jiang Wei will say. Typically 10 minutes. That's a very shallow discussion, but she has 25 minutes, so she will say a little bit deeper, and also commenting on their review finance paper of the going bankrupt with China. Okay. So general institution questions about enforcement. This is also in the discussion a little bit. Is that you really have to tell us what are you guys are capturing. I also pushed you guys. I mean, often the time you need to read the text itself, and not only you guys read it, you need to explain to us that what do you understand after reading all these complicated texts. You guys have to do this homework. You can't just say, okay, we read that, and this is what you do, and then when you run regression, feel like it just anybody can run. Like, I get the feeling every single time you present. I think you need to get to the deeper part to tell us what the legal documents tell us. So this is just one question, one highlighted point about enforcement. And one thing is that what's the difference between China and other major economies? I believe this is what Bernie was asking you. And what is enforcement? Okay, so most intuitively is a court order gets executed quickly in no deviation, right? So that was exactly that definition of a court order. So enforcement is not just a court order. Okay, enforcement is about whether there's it can be quickly without any additional cost to get what the court order get. Okay, so more generally, obviously, is complicated. So that's why we usually use the word of enforcement, and typically in the theoretical model, that means that we have to add on another constraints, saying whatever you prescribe by the contract or the court has to be incentive compatible. That's the part. Okay, and you guys need to carefully think about that part, and also pointing out to us that what is the special court to help in this particular about the enforcement. Okay, so here is I guess that you guys are using this word called lengthy and cumbersome bankruptcy process test standard in the way. So this is related to that. What is the nature of the reform? What goes into the key independent variable is basically your establishment of these independent bankruptcy courts that accounts in many cities in different time. So you have this nice staggered entry, basically staggered adoption idea. What this slide is really just to tell you that the so-called the court is about enforcement, etc. But essentially, what you're looking at is so-called creditor rights, and those two things could be different. And here, what Jiang Wei was saying, that a weak protection of creditor rights is really not unique to developing countries. So you guys need to talk about that. The U.S. bankruptcy law usually considered as a pro-debtor, and here's a debtor in possession process. You can say that basically after you bankrupt, the debtor can still in process, because that we need them to running the defaulted firm or just falling under firm to work to operate in a relatively normal way, so that the creditors get paid. Okay, so that's the debtor in possession. That's a very important concept in finance. Mm-hmm. So lengthy bankruptcies are not necessarily pro-debtor. I do not know about the Eastern Airline. I do know Lehman Brothers right now still not paid out yet, but typically people will think that even though it's a very, very complicated, but the debtors get a fair treatment. Okay, so you need to think about it. How do you just explain to us more on this lengthy and cumbersome mean? What she was basically complaining about is, I think it's getting to the endogeneity of the instrument or whatever the policy, right? Because the establishment of a special court is not complete out of vacuum. So it is hard to imagine efficiency does not bring about a better outcomes. This is basically saying that in what way that a specialized court gets to established. So it must be some deeper reason why do you set up a specialized court. What's interesting is that the table 2 shows that none of the above, like it's really not correlated with anything. Okay, and then Lee and Ponticelli, I guess she read it carefully. This is the document post the special court. They can still choose one against the other. In our discussion about the Nanjing and the Maisan, you guys also tell everybody about that. And maybe that in the other paper you showed that really that choice is also not predictable. Maybe that I do not remember. So in some sense that often the time I read a lot of papers, they try to show that it's really not correlated with something that we typically thought it should be, and that ends it. I actually here it's really agree with Jiang that it's not success yet. You need to really if you find out the factors that it did drive the timeless of the setup, it could help with the research design, because that tells us that what is underlying the variation. This is not just for you, but just for everybody working on this, reduced form regression analysis. Let me making sure that okay. So more into the black box is that what you guys do is to just connect to a region change, a new court, and you view that as exogenous shock. What this slide is telling you is basically saying that if you really believe special court is exogenous, special court itself is just a means. Okay, what really important is special court lead to something else, and those things is the economic mechanism to improve the outcome, not just the court itself. The court itself is just a building or whatever thing, right? So give you one example. To the extent that the authors believe that the introduction of a court was exogenous, this could be used as an instrument for the outcome variable in table 8, and then make a direct connection between the quality of a process and economic outcomes, such as that. So, for instance, that here default, this is the table 8. So here is a default BFFCM special court here, all these things. So you might want to think about what causes the default, right? Think about it, say, the bankruptcy. Sometimes in my mind is that it's at least in US, default is really the negotiation outcome. If the creditors really think that they can get a lot of it from the bankruptcy, then they will be very, very strong in insisting on the payment. As a result, the default is more likely. And then here, basically is the recovery is the key, driving the default outcome. Then you should basically recovery regress on special court, that's the instrument, and then they use the recovery hat, which is driven by the variation of the special court to predict the default. Okay, so that's basically some conceptualized point of this comment. And it's also, this would be more logical specification than table 7. What do you do here is, I typically don't like this kind of regression. Here is that you have a special court here and then times some court enforcement. What is court enforcement? Michael was asking. Court enforcement is measured by recovery rate. Again, it's quoted, it's ordered recovery rate. But the issue is that the recovery, you use the recovery rate in table 6 as the outcome variable, and then you here put it into the independent variable. Just think how carefully what is the economic logic behind all these approaches. Okay. Now comments. This is going to be very quick. I actually do not feel this is a very you need to do it, but let me just present some empiricists. This is an empirical method. So here, why BFCT? B is the bankruptcy court, F is a firm, C is the county, T is the time. But clearly the special court, the variation you're capturing is the CT level, county and the T level. So all other like BF stuff is really does not matter in the way that it should be absorbed. Okay, so this is what I say. Variation within the same CT here cannot be explained by key variable of interest anyway. So that should not help you to identify beta. And here you basically put it into the big panel and using all these fixed factors to absorb all the things. I do think that sometimes it matters, just because I had an experience. A lot of times the implicit weights across many of the groups matters. It is basically the different weighting you apply as when you get the statistical significance and also the order of magnitude of the estimates. So what the Jiang was basically saying that they seems to be like the more rigorous way or better way is to do first the difference out, and then you treat them basically along C and T level regression, so that you treat every CT as a one observation. To me, that's just a different weighting, but that's what it shows. Okay, so it's a significant contribution to understanding the bankruptcy process in China. It's going to be paper that a lot of people will read. Thank you. Okay, I'm done with my work. And I also told you some of the things that I feel strong about it. Any questions in the audience? And collect some questions, and then people might you might want to respond a bit. Michael?
Yeah. So yeah, I've seen the paper a couple of times, and I feel like the paper has been improving significantly over time. Now you have some new stuff, very interesting stuff. I guess my question is really related to what Zhigo said and what Jiang was put into her slide. On the selection, on the decision of choosing, civil courts and special courts. Even if just think about the case you gave us within Nanjing City. Suppose it's completely randomly assigned between civil and special courts. I can see, I can see the results will be there, but suppose that there are some selections. And to justify, why this introduction of special court has such a big effect on spread, then I guess a natural way to show is if more and more firms are actually assigned to special courts, even if this assignment is not entirely decided by the firm itself. Somehow this thing will be useful. Or even if you show the zero correlation between this assignment and firm characteristics, somehow firms would like to go to special courts, and therefore you see after the introduction of the court, then substantial increase in fraction of firms going to the special courts that lead to that actually contributes to the decline in the spread. Something like that I guess, I'm probably just repeating what Jiang Wenzhuo said. I just want to emphasize this again.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Should I respond?
Yeah, you can respond.
Oh, okay, first, I would like to respond to Zhigo's comments. So you see each very same as Michael. Thank you so much for your feedback. So I agree. So I think we are indeed interesting, especially on the selection of these what determine the courts from the ways comments. I think that's an important question. Goes beyond into from the balance test, right? So there's no such correlation, but it's interesting for us to explore, especially what determined the court introduction. So I think Michael also gave us a similar suggestion. From all this, we haven't do this test yet, so we are thinking the next step. So from our discussion with judges and lawyers, so in the past, so they say is depends first of all on the capacity of these judges, right? So that means their business and etc. Do they have the extra time to handle this court? And another driver, it could be on the political motive. So especially when the local mayor, so whenever there's turnover, so probably they have incentive to clear up previously non-performing firms or zombie firms and etc. I think especially on the political dimension, we may want to spend more time on that to zoom in, especially the process, more than the identification proceed on the drivers given in China on these dimensions, as Michael suggested. So what are these? So if we can help understand better, so I think that's quite important. Yeah, thank you very much.
But do you have some candidates? Like what drives this?
I think so far we want to look at the political motive, so the turnover of the city mayors, right? So I think that's more predetermined. So at the local level, right? So they may have incentive to push towards more firms going bankrupt. So especially at the beginning of their cycle, right? The political cycle. So same as your paper with Chenzhuo, right?
Well, we're more interested on the selection. That's a different layer.
The selection within the city, right? So that one. So so the selection on that layer. So I think we may need to zoom in, especially our data on the judges on their characteristic, what determine whether they are going to leave. So I think the comments we get from judges really depends on do they have certain skills to handle that? Do they have similar case in the past in certain industries? Can they handle? Do they have the right skill? So I think that's also related to one of the Wei's point. So probably need to zoom in more on judge level characteristics. Because this will affect the assignment of case into the different judges. Yeah. So, but we have to look at this more carefully. So on the judge characteristics, but we do have the judge characteristic data we have collected. We think we're going to explore more for which case is going to assign to which court, to which judge. Yeah, that may give us a clear picture. Yeah.
But sorry, let me ask a follow-up question. So if it's really a judge effect, then I assume, the introduction of special courts does not automatically increase the supply of those skillful, experienced judges, right? So it's you can also find. I mean, I don't know the details, but I assume local judges, the pool is pretty constant. So so what makes a difference if you have special courts? You can also do the assignment, among those judges in the civil courts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's more.
So in general, I feel that maybe this is the Bernie and I had a little window. So I think even I do not have a very good immediate understanding of the timeline that a typical bankruptcy case will happen. Let's say, must be that somebody missed a payment, interest payment or principal payment. What is next? I might imagine, I do understand what happened in US is that, it's not directly go to the court. They negotiate and
try rescheduling and so on.
Yeah. Yes. And if for the listed company, that considered as a technical default, the reason, and especially you have a CDS contract, because a lot of a payment is going to trigger on this event. So therefore, that those things are very, very much institutionalized. But for the thing in China, I imagine that the court gets involved after the debtor really send in illegal documents there.
Right.
That must be the final.
And then I suspect that in between there's something that they do for the enforcement to come in.
Yeah,
right.
That's the reason that I mentioned that in the regression, right? I do think that the recovery itself should make the according to my little model, that if the recovery is higher, then the debt should be more stronger, right? A creditor should be more stubborn, or bargaining power goes up, so they're more likely to push the firm into the bankruptcy. That kind of a logic, I do think that you need to tell us the details of the procedure in order to understand the result.
I really have I find, like what Zhiguo say, there are a lot of things we don't know. And because we don't know, we look at the result, we find out that it's really a statistical black box treatment. The institutional detail, I think, is very useful, but maybe it's already available. If not, then maybe you can help us write another paper. Just give us the institutional details. Let us understand the issue. And also, if I can compare cross countries, how their behavior differs, would really help us to understand in which part that we can make the Chinese capital market or the developing countries' capital market more efficient.
Thank you very much, Bernie. Yep, yeah, we could provide more institutional detail. I think, especially to understand about bankruptcy resolution process. I think that's even.
Or maybe you can also refer us you can just briefly describe the institutional detail, then refer us to papers that we can ourselves go and read. But I'm just exposing my ignorance in this.
Yeah. So I
remember
think
that. Can I make one final point? So I give an example of a Dongbei Tegang example in my chapter. You mentioned it. I don't think that involved court. I thought it was just an agreement between these state-owned SASACs and a bunch of creditors.
It did involve court.
It did.
Yeah.
I see. So they went. They get it. Okay, that's useful to know. So maybe that in the end, or once they get to the final agreement, they kind of agree on, then the court step in. I mean, who lead it? It's Michael is smiling.
Especially the court is leading the negotiation process. So
no, I don't believe so. No.
When it comes to this, I have a gut feeling that there exists a lot of variations across cases, and how they are treated depends a lot on the situation, the social environment, and who's behind the debtor, who's behind the lender, etc. So but it's just my suspicion. I don't know. You make me feel that now I want to turn on the internet and search. It's curious, very curious stuff.
Thank you very much.
Good. Great. So this is a 7:10. Thanks everybody for attending. This is a very fascinating topic. Thank you, Li Bo, and your paper is Li.
And we're going to go at this again,
Bernie.
but not the 18th of February because of the it will be the which day is it? Because we want to avoid the Chinese the Lunar New Year thing, so it will be on the 22nd, I think. We'll duly inform the audience, and thanks to everyone for participating. And the next paper is Wang Xiaode Wang's paper.
That's another law.
Yes, so we're bundling this the legal element and capital market together. as a sequence. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.